Off his Middle East trip in Saudi Arabia. We have the details. Plus, learn more about Pope Leo XIV and the Order of St. Augustine from a close friend of the newly elected pontiff. Join us for news from a Catholic perspective tonight.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Hello, family, and welcome to a wet and rainy St. Peter's Square here, live, covering the first couple of days of our new Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV. And I'm here with our regular family guests, Monsignor Landry, the National Director of the Pontifical Mission Societies USA, and Dr. Matthew Bunson, the Editorial Director and Vice President of EWTN News, and also soon-to-be biographer of Pope Leo XIV. We'll talk about that a little later.
Hopefully.
And Mother Anna Grace. Mother Anna Grace of the Dominican Sisters, but you have a much longer, more special name.
We are the Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia from Nashville, Tennessee.
And you also have another very important title, leading communities of women religious with the CMSWR, the Council of Major Superiors of Women Religious, right?
That's correct. I'm currently the president of that council.
And a great president that you are, here on mission to share with all of the dicasteries the great work that women religious are doing in addition to their needs.
Thank you so
much. What can you tell us about those meetings and why you've come to Rome?
Well, each year we have an opportunity to come and meet with the different dicasteries, and this year we had a little surprise because some of those meetings happened, but some of them did not happen because there happened to be a conclave.
That's right, but you were in the square and you got to see the white smoke.
Yeah, we were very close to the square, actually, Montse. We heard the bells and we were ready to run at a moment's notice, and lo and behold, we did have to run. So we heard the bells from a bit of a distance and heard white. So with throngs of other people, we started to run towards St. Peter's. Absolutely thrilling, hearing all different languages and different cultures all coming together to be one here in the square, waiting for our new Holy Father.
And when you heard the name, did you know who they were talking about?
Initially, not exactly, but then in hearing that it was an American, of course, we're a little bit stunned and amazed, but. Such a joy filling us, and even all of the people around us just absolutely thrilled to hear his voice and to see his very peaceful, powerful presence.
A beautiful, peaceful, powerful presence and a very prayerful presence. I think for you all who have such beautiful voices, what was it like then this Sunday to hear him sing the Regina Coeli?
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. And of course, as religious, we sing and chant very much, and the Holy Father, as a religious himself, would bring that aspect of depth to his prayer. And I think St. Augustine himself says, he who sings prays twice.
A lot of people
he who sings well prays twice. Quis bis bene cantat bis orat.
I'm not sure everyone adds that in, Monsignor Landry, but we'll let you keep that.
But he does sing well.
He does sing well. Well, we weren't the only ones that were incredibly excited. There actually was a group of seminarians in Peru, former seminarians of the former Cardinal Prevost, who also had a reaction. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah!
Oh my goodness, it's like there was a goal at the World Cup or something, right? I think we all felt that way. I'm sure there were a lot of Americans who felt that way. A big win for the American church, in addition to obviously the universal church, as we know that he will be a father to all with the experience that he has from the Americas, but also that wonderful heart of an Augustinian. From living in community, what can you tell us about his spirituality and how that might be a little different?
Oh, wonderful. Well, as an Augustinian, he lives a contemplative and apostolic life, and so he brings a special understanding of religious and their place in the church, and also as a bishop has an amazing understanding of the universal church, so both the hierarchical and also the charismatic.
Well, I know in October we have the Jubilee for Consecrated Life, and we're all looking forward to seeing all of the habits and all the different communities that will be represented. But for you, do you think there's something in particular that religious communities need from the Holy Father that should be a priority for him?
I think the Holy Father has already brought encouragement and clarity in the nature of in the essence of what religious life is for the church. He's already encouraged praying for vocations and clarifying really for us what religious life really is for the church, and it's a total consecration of a life to God. And he's living that himself, and will bring that into every aspect of the church.
Monsignor Landry, Pope Francis had a legacy with consecrated life and with religious congregations as well. What can you tell us about the changes he made that might be a roadmap or a turnaround for Pope Leo?
Well, of course, he called the first year of consecrated life in the history of the church in order first to celebrate the extraordinary gift that we have in men and women religious and consecrated virgins and consecrated hermits, you name it. But then he wanted the whole world to see in religious life the way for us really to relate to Jesus. Every one of us by our baptism is supposed to be all in. We're all called to be saints. Religious men and women show us how to do that with great focus. We call it a more intimate form of baptismal consecration, and so that's what they show us. We're all supposed to unite ourselves to Christ in his poverty. They do it in a particularly radical way, to relate ourselves to doing the Father's will just as Jesus did, and they do that in a more radical way. To live for God first and foremost, loving him with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and they do that prioritizing Jesus over even the great goods of marriage and family. And so he wanted all of us to look to them so that they could wake up, that was his expression, wake up the whole church, so that Mother Anna Grace Neenan here from Weymouth, Massachusetts would be able to be an alarm clock going off to wake the three of us up and all EWTN viewers.
Certainly, and I think that's one of the things that we focused on at the Given Institute, which is a group for women to help introduce them not just to religious life, but to the gift that they are as women to the church, that feminine genius, as John Paul II liked to call it. What would you say about Given and how it encourages holy friendship with women religious?
I think Given is an absolutely beautiful initiative and has really taken off in the United States and has already borne tremendous fruit. So they encourage one another, they look to each other for an example, and they band together with different initiatives to serve the church in multiple different ways.
Now, Matthew, we know that the Holy Father has asked us to pray for religious vocations. That was something very intentional that he said. Why do you think he made that such a focus?
Well, first, as he noted during the Regina Caeli, that this was the day for praying for vocations in the church. But he also recognizes as a missionary of many, many years, as a bishop of many years, and also then as prefect for the dicastery for bishops, the importance of that vocation, but the discernment in all of our lives of what God is calling us to do, whether it's a consecrated life, whether it's to married life, whether it's dedicated single life. So that discernment process is something I think that he's certainly looked at throughout his life. And I think over the years, I know he has given advice and counsel to many young men and women as they discern what God is calling them to do.
Now, gentlemen, Mother Anna Grace talked about that white smoke and how she ran over or wanted to run over. And we know that it came much later than we thought on that fourth vote. And there are certain cardinals who have given interviews to the press explaining some of that. One of them is Cardinal Sacco, who went on TV in Arabic and was explaining that what happened there was a misvote, a double vote. Do you want to explain that to us, Matthew?
Yes. Well, apparently he didn't get into absolute specifics as to what happened, probably to spare the cardinal involved.
He didn't name names.
Additional embarrassment. But essentially what happened was when they did the tally, and as we have learned over these weeks, it is very precise. The scrutineers and the revisers, they discovered that instead of 133 votes, there were actually 134 votes.
That's right.
So they realized, one of the cardinals, to his horror, realized he had accidentally voted twice, which invalidated the vote.
It must have been one of the three from Chicago, based on U.S. history. Who knows?
Vote early and often. Yes, I understand. So by the rules, they had to start over. So we had been pondering why it would have been so late, because we had white smoke when we thought they would just be moving on to what would have been the fifth vote. So by doing it again, that added that extra time. So mystery solved.
Yes.
And the same thing happened when Pope Francis was elected in 2013. In that case, there was an extra blank that was put in there, so they had to redo the vote one last time as well.
This, I think, is one of the reasons why I understand that in his meeting with the cardinals, based on some of the media reporting, Pope Leo was asked if he would consider starting to look at possibly reforming exactly how they do these. Yeah. Granted, it is a system that dates back a few years, all the way back to 1274. but these rules, of course, were put in 1996. But with something of a demonstration of his wit, Pope Leo supposedly said, "Wow, are you already planning the next conclave?"
Yes. 69-year-old man says, "What are you thinking?" You know, exactly. We are in Rome after all.
But it was really important, I think, for them to have done that. Obviously, vote is invalid, so you move immediately to do it again, especially because we know that that was the ballot that elected him Pope.
Yes.
So they needed to be absolutely transparent, absolutely precise, to guarantee no questions about the validity of his election. And considering that, again, media reports would suggest that he got well over 100 of the 133 electors voting for him. Again, we don't want to know too many details because we don't want to violate the secrecy of the conclave. But certainly there was a consensus, a large consensus. He got more than the 2/3, and they wanted to make sure that every vote was counted, in this case, properly.
Now, Mother Anna Grace, as a leader of a community and so many women who are looking to you for guidance, and then also thinking about the role that you play with CMSWR, how important is it for you to be able to explain this process, both the voting and what goes along, kind of the security of the vote alongside it?
Yes, very, very important, I would say. In our Dominican order, we also have a tradition of electing our superiors. And so we're very familiar with the voting process and how important that is for the validity's sake. And yes, they'll be very interested to know this.
I'm sure you'll be communicating that to them as well. Well, it seems that this Holy Father is someone who is focused on the media, focused on communications. We had a wonderful gathering with him yesterday morning where we were able to hear about his focus on truth, how he emphasized the importance of protecting those who are in reporting from war zones, those who are persecuted for seeking the truth, and for us to be able to make informed choices. As a Dominican, when you think about the importance of information and education, especially from a teaching order, how did you think about those remarks, and why would it be important to be informed as a Catholic?
Yes, absolutely. The motto for the Dominican order is Veritas, which is truth. So preaching the truth of the gospel is why we were founded, and to bring the truths of salvation to the ends of the earth. And so the reporters of today have a wonderful opportunity to do just that, to help us to be understanding of what is truly for our salvation.
Well, we did see that the Holy Father decided to keep the Pontifex handle on social media, whether that's X or Instagram, with a particular focus on Instagram, knowing that that reaches young people. As an order that teaches and reaches so many, do you think he's trying to reach out and be intentional?
Absolutely. I think he has a heart for the young, and will know how to reach them. I think he will understand that engaging the media is going to be crucial in helping our young people find their way to Jesus.
Now, Monsignor Landry, media can be a precarious place. I think you know media pretty well. Is he exposing himself by deciding to continue with this tradition, which at sometimes under Pope Francis was used against him?
The Holy Father, unlike another American who's quite well known, isn't going to be sending out 2 a.m. texts. The official accounts here are planned basically well in advance, so he's not going to be opining off the cuff. That hasn't been what Pope Francis has done or Pope Benedict has done. They look ahead to see what messages would be coming every day, and it's vetted in several areas. Of course, he's totally free to do whatever he wants with the account, but if he follows the path that's come before, he's going to use it as a teaching tool in all 9 languages with which it goes on out in order to be able to get particular messages out, but it's not going to be for the spur of the moment
Hot
communication. We do know that as the Cardinal Prefect of the Dicastery for bishops here and the Bishop Chiclayo, he used his Twitter account that he himself paid for, of course, that he even got the extra payment for the blue check mark so that it was totally official and nobody could impersonate him very easily. He used that quite a bit in order to be able to get his message out when he didn't want to do it one-on-one. That was his preferred means of communication. And so I think the first pope who's arrived to the papacy with a Twitter account wouldn't have been the one to end pontifex on Twitter. No way.
That's right. Why is this so significant, Matthew?
Well, I think it's significant because we have already seen Pope Leo talking about the importance of communication. He talked about the importance of AI and the ramifications of it for the culture, for the civilization, and I think for the church. So I would be not surprised if he also has a little bit more creativity in some of the aspects of social media. We'll see. I think, as you say, it's largely going to be pre-programmed, but I think we may start to see a little more innovation in how they use it, certainly to reach wider audiences. He's also stressed in his communications already that he wants more communications among the dicasteries, for example. So he wants a lot of conversation happening.
It's beautiful, and I do think there was a catechetical element that they mentioned in the release that went out with the assertion that he would be taking on the Pontifex handle. So I'm looking forward to that too, knowing that there's a world starved for Jesus that wants to be encountered online. We did, when it was nicer out, it wasn't raining yet. This is a new moment this afternoon. We did go out earlier today, and we had some wonderful encounters. One of our reporters asked a couple of questions of how people from around the world who are still here and waiting for that inaugural Mass on Sunday felt about the election of Pope Leo XIV.
I'm a little worried that he won't, because he hasn't lived there for so long, I'm worried that he won't understand the new age American politics and what's going on in the United States. But I really do hope that he brings a new light to what's going on in our country. So
I hope it's going to be like a sort of a mixture between the last Pope, Francesco, and that is going to meet the requirements of young people, but without compromising or without forgetting all the value of Catholicism.
A person who has a depth in spirituality, because I have seen him in the chapel praying, and person with a lot of experience, you know, as we see him in working in Peru and working in missionary in many other countries, and great blessing that we have a good Pope.
I think it would be time for an American Pope, actually. Considering the language, I mean, Pope Francis didn't really speak much English, so I think that is a big advantage to reach out for people.
And how does it make you feel that we have the first American Pope as an American citizen?
Wonderful. We need it for the U.S.
Yeah, the U.S. could use a little relaxing, a little love, especially for the younger generation. It's kind of tough right in the U.S. right now, but you know, we'll work through it. But the Pope could help us a lot by focusing on the younger generation, and you know, rather than worried about something material, take a look at the future. So.
The Pope could help us a lot in the United States for young people, and from the mouths of babes, young people asking for clarity and for more orthodox understanding of the church. Is this a surprise to you, knowing that you work with so many young people?
Not a surprise. We see the hunger in these young people who they want to know the truth. They want to know what the church teaches. They want to know where the church stands. And isn't it just so refreshing to hear?
Absolutely refreshing. Were you surprised, Matthew, at the differences, both in terms of background, that you're hearing so many similar messages?
Yeah. I think, well, two things. First, there is the magnificent universality of the Pope, of what it means to be Pope, that when he came out on the loggia, he was our Pope for every Catholic in the world and everyone with a conscience in the world. But then there's the specific aspect of him being the first American. I think there was always an assumption that could never happen, but now that it has, I think people are realizing there might be many benefits to having an American Pope, or at least a U.S.-born Pope. We're already seeing it, as the lovely couple said. There's a lot that he can bring to the United States simply by being here in Rome, by being Pope, but carrying that message then of hope to young people in the U.S., but also what is often seemingly a very fractured and divided culture in the U.S.
It seemed that all of these messages were messages of hope. They were kind of a plea, a hopeful plea to the Holy Father. Monsignor Landry, how did you react to that?
The Pope is meant to be a figure of hope, absolutely wants to be a figure of hope. What's the hope that he bears? The hope that everything Jesus has said and done is true. And if he turns us to his boss, the Lord Jesus, that's where we're really going to have hope, through the valley of tears as we pray at the end of every rosary, but in fulfillment of what Jesus came to accomplish for all of us. And Jesus promised before he ascended into heaven that he's gone to prepare a place for us and that he's coming back in order to take us to where he wants to go. So the same Lord Jesus who just gave us sun and made the rain stop has so much more in store.
I know we all did have our little Mary Poppins moment where we put our umbrellas away because the sun is coming through in a lovely, lovely, wonderful way that we know that our Lord provides, always provides. Well, in the United States, though, we do have some worrying statistics about young people leaving the faith, being skeptical of institutions, particularly the institutional church. For you as a woman religious and also, again, in that position where you have so much access to them, do you see that same skepticism, and what would be the cure to that you would dictate?
Well, today I think the whole world is watching what's happening right now and is very in tune with what the Holy Father is saying. And I think that he will be a leader, not only for Catholics around the world, but for the whole world. And a real light and a real preacher.
Yes, we've seen he has the ability to preach, which is beautiful. Matthew, we've heard a lot from the Holy Father's brothers. One of them made fun of him, saying there he goes talking in Spanish. He's showing off on live TV. I think that was on NBC, which is remarkable that you would have your brother criticizing you. Some people said that he left Chicago to get away from his brothers, which seems funny, and it gives you an idea of how beautiful his family was, that they could joke in such a way. But he doesn't have any sisters. How might he relate to women, knowing his background?
Well, I suspect, having seen bits of his personality, he has a great sense of humor. Clearly, his mother played a very significant role in his life, as did Pope Francis's. And as we get to know him more, I think we're going to hear more from him about the importance of women in the life of the Church. And I think that spiritual motherhood on his coat of arms is the fleur-de-lis. So Mother Mary is extremely important to him. Certainly as a member of the Augustinian order, she's important to all of them. He drove first thing out to the great shrine of Mother of Good Counsel. So there's Mother, our mother, there's his mother, and I think we're going to see and hear a lot more from him about women in the Church, but in a way that is very faithful and very consistent with the Church's teachings.
What do we know, Monsignor Landry, about Mildred Prevost?
So she was 7 years older than Louis, his dad. And so she came, in a sense, with great experience. She, in 1947, received a college degree, which was very rare for Catholics, especially from recent immigrant ethnic groups, to be able to get that advanced degree. She eventually raised her sons and then went back as a librarian, but she exercised her spiritual maternity in addition to her biological maternity throughout his life. And so she was instrumental, not just in arranging other people to come over to eat her fabulous cooking. She had an extraordinary reputation, but also to be able to have confidence to go on out, knowing that he would be able to come home always and receive his mother's love. That's what's so important about moms in the lives of their sons, especially those who are going to be priests, that they're able to mediate that intimate love of God so that their sons are able to develop a profound prayer life. When you hear Pope Leo talk about what's most important. He's always talking about that prayerful encounter with the Lord. On the question you gave to Matthew, I'd just say one thing. During his time in Chiclayo, as a priest, as a missionary, as well as a bishop, the people about whom he talks the most are the Augustinian sisters, without whom he couldn't have been a successful bishop. They were everywhere with him. They were really enforcing his pastoral initiatives, bringing him out to the people. And so that type of collaboration, which has distinguished his time as a bishop, I think is going to distinguish his time as the Bishop of Rome.
And I think we will see that tradition of having sisters around him in the Apostolic Palace as well, in that apartment, which we hope will include women religious, similar to the way that Pope Benedict decided to form the people who were around him. That choice from his mom, a very educated woman, obviously a strong woman, a wise woman, to decide to stay home and care for her sons. What's your message to young women who struggle or who look at the future, are not married, or kind of disappointed in what they see in masculinity or in men in general? You know, some dating advice.
What are you talking about? All right. Theoretically.
Theoretically.
I would say motherhood is the most important vocation that there could be. And for many of the reasons that Father expressed, that nurturing environment is where the seeds of every vocation come, where they realize that they are loved by their parents, ultimately by God, which will give them the strength and the response to grace that they will need to follow wherever the Lord is calling them.
Well, I know that holy friendship that exists with the Holy Father and these women religious, as we will see throughout his pontificate, was also something that was shared by is shared, I would say, by Cardinal O'Malley and the late Mother Angelica. And we have a story that he told of one time when he was on a live show, and she surprised him with an answer from a caller.
Let's talk about vocations. And so I gave this little spiel about vocations, and this young lady called in, and I think she was like 16 years old, and she said, I want to become a nun, but my family is opposed. What should I do? And I said, well, you have to be patient. You're very young. Talk to your pastor. And Mother Angelica said, my mother didn't want me to be a nun either. I ran away from home.
I ran away from home. That was the advice from Mother Angelica to a young woman who thought she had a vocation.
Lots of women religious have done it. I could give a whole list, but one who's very dear to everybody at this time of year. That's what St. Faustina Kowalska did.
Yes.
She had to run away from home as well.
Well, I think it's a beautiful way to remember that no matter how the Lord calls you, that you can always rely on him in prayer and sometimes in radical action. To be welcomed into his arms and to serve his church. We're so grateful for your vocation, obviously for your vocation too, Monsignor. And Matthew, we're awaiting your book. Tell us, how can we order that fabulous biography that's going to be coming out on Pope Leo the 14th?
If you go to EWTN for the religious catalog, you can do a pre-order right now. We're working on it, and I'm very optimistic we will have a book. Habemus Papam, in this case, Habemus Librum.
And Habemus Son, which is really nice here not to be covered in the rain, so that we could continue to bring these live broadcasts to you from St. Peter's Square to help you get to know the Holy Father, what his heart really has inside of it, and what he will be as a gift to our church, a gift we all prayed for as a community. And I want to remind you all that, as Mother Angelica said, to keep us between your electric bill and your gas and electric bill, I hope that you will also keep us in your prayers and in your heart and support our mission here to continue to bring you, especially more important now than ever, as we have the first ever American Pope, to bring you that wonderful communication of the church in the world and a closeness to Christ for those who need it most. Thank you for being with us, and God bless you.
From EWTN News Nightly, I'm Owen Jensen with an EWTN News link. President Donald Trump is in Saudi Arabia, kicking off a 4-day trip to the Middle East. Crown Prince Mohammed greeted Trump after his landing in Riyadh. The two leaders are speaking on Iran's nuclear program, the war in Gaza, and signing a host of agreements. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Tel Aviv meeting with families of hostages in Gaza. Dozens of people stood in Hostage Square demanding